A little bit, thank you. Senate Republicans are proposing their own $600 billion COVID relief bill after meeting with President Biden yesterday at the White House. All this as impeachment for President Trump looms in the Senate chambers. Here to help us break this all down is Georgia Congressman Jody Hice. Congressman, good morning. Thanks so much for being with us. It is Groundhog Day. I think it's very apropos that we're talking about this bill because I seem to remember a very similar bill being proposed in October by Republicans in the House and the Senate, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer didn't want anything to do with it until after the election. Now, why do you think that is?
Yeah, it's amazing. We all know it's all politics. All they do is play political games trying to reach more power for their radical agenda. But yeah, here we go again. How many stimulus packages do we need? We just passed one a few weeks ago, and here we are facing another one, nearly $2 trillion that the Democrats are trying to spend. And we are continuing to go down this path of bankrupting our country. We simply do not have the kind of funds to turn this into a socialist country where the government is sending out checks to everyone every month. What needs to happen, Rob, is we've got to reopen the economy. You cannot send enough checks to replace livelihoods. We've got to reopen the economy. That is where the focus needs to be.
How concerned are you? Trending on Twitter was that term, democratic socialism. It was trending again over the weekend. Bernie Sanders is a self-described democratic socialist, and the Democrats have made it very clear that they are willing to go it alone on this bill. How concerning is all this?
Well, it's very concerning, and quite frankly, it's not a trend. It's a reality. We do have socialists in the Democratic Party, and they're trying to move us in that direction as a country, and it simply is a failed political system. What works best is the greatest economic engine in the history of the world, and that is the American free enterprise capitalistic system, and we can't depart from that. We need to open it up and let it do what it does best, and that is provide opportunities for everyone to jump into the marketplace. And so it's very concerning that the Democrats continue to push this type of agenda and try to do so, quite frankly, without even inviting Republicans to the table, without having any input from us whatsoever.
Congressman, it seems like with these bills, which are thousands of pages long in some cases, Democrats just think that the Republicans don't read them. This bill, instead of $2,000, which Joe Biden had promised, and he's only been in office now for 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, it's now down to $1,400 but for people making $75,000 a year or less. But it also includes people that never lost their jobs. So people that just have continued working while we've dealt with this pandemic are going to get these checks. There's also stuff in there that has nothing to do with COVID relief. There's a hike in the minimum wage to $15 an hour. But the Seattle Times says, they did an investigation. They say that 110,000 restaurants and counting have closed that will never reopen. So how do we expect restaurant owners, gym owners, people that are struggling right now anyway, how do we expect them to be able to pay $15 an hour now in the minimum wage?
Well, you can't. You absolutely cannot expect them to do that. Again, we've got to reopen the economy. And by the way, I would also say that it's Democrats who are not reading their bills. Remember, it was Nancy Pelosi herself, the leader of the Democratic Party, who said we've got to pass this in order to find out what's in it. Her own leadership is one that let's get thousands of pages worth of horrible legislation and pass it, and then we'll work through the details later. But listen, the only way to protect these restaurant owners and other businesses is to open the economy and to obviously do so safely. But we have many states, like my own state here in Georgia. Our economy is doing extremely well. We are safely dealing with issues, opening schools, opening economies, opening businesses. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Unfortunately, the Democrats don't agree with that. And as a result, our nation continues to suffer.
You know, it's interesting. We are a few days away. The impeachment will start on the 9th at 1 p.m. In the U.S. Capitol building. And what's happening right now, I just think it's going to generate a lot of sympathy for not only the Republican Party, but for President Trump in particular. And I can see it happening right now in black and white in the Washington Post, the New York Times, all the major papers, you know, a little bit after the trial starts. Acquitted will be the headline because this thing's not going to happen. So why are they pushing this thing through right now?
Well, they're proving yet again two things. Number one, their deep hatred for President Trump and anyone who supports him, including the 75 million people who voted for him. But they are also now twice in 1 year weaponizing impeachment against their political opponents. That is not what our founders intended impeachment to be. And yet here we go again. And you're exactly right. President Trump, rightfully so, will be fully acquitted of this. But it is yet again another horrible abuse of the Democrats to utilize an impeachment process as nothing other than a weapon to go after President Trump. It's just shameful, and fortunately, it's not going to go anywhere.
Do you think that President Trump testifies on his own behalf once the trial starts?
I don't know. I kind of doubt it, but we'll wait and see. I think he would do a great job if he does. But again, he's going to be acquitted with this, so there's no point, I believe, in potentially stepping in some landmine that they would have set for him politically. This is an absolutely ridiculous attempt to impeach a president who is not even president. I mean, yet again, that argument alone, how do you impeach a president who is not even serving?
Right.
Now? The whole thing is just an absolute joke, and so I would be very surprised if the president testifies in this.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope, speaking from a constitutional perspective, but I was under the impression that impeachment was to get somebody out of office. Donald Trump has been out of office since the 20th of January right now. I wanted to talk about a new member of the GOP, Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Georgia congresswoman, very outspoken, but Mitch McConnell, who right now is at least the elected leader of the Republican Party, certainly in the Senate, he talked about her loony lies and conspiracy theories. He also called her a cancer for the GOP. And is it language like this that only moves to further divide the party right now?
Well, of course it does. Mitch McConnell needs to mind his own business, quite frankly. He has enough issues to deal with in the Senate without meddling with what's taking place in the House. Marjorie Greene has been elected. The alleged comments that are floating around are not anything new. They are not comments that have been made while she's been a member of Congress. They are years old. And at the same time, we have multiple Democrats as members of Congress who have made extremely inflammatory rhetoric against other members of Congress.
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi, for example, Maxine Waters, AOC this past week.
Ayanna Pressley.
Sanders inspired someone to shoot a group of baseball players in the Republican Party. So this cannot be one-sided.
Yeah, Ayanna Pressley calling half the GOP caucus white supremacists, and of course you're right. That Capitol baseball shooter was a Bernie Sanders supporter. You make a lot of good points. By the way, Marjorie Taylor Greene, she extremely popular in her district. I believe she won almost 75% of the vote there. So it doesn't. Mitch McConnell is also speaking to her constituents by saying that as well. Congressman Jody Hice, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time and your expertise. We appreciate it.